Hey everybody, it's Yacht back with another crazy idea. And it's really not that crazy. There was a couple of things I wanted to cover before we talk about this new process. And I might not even be the first person that's done this. I wouldn't be surprised if I'm not, because it's so simple. It's just almost stupid. But I think the first thing I want to say is when I do these machines, I am trying to get them ready to go into an arcade. They are not some sort of high-end restoration. I'm just trying to get them good enough to go in the arcade where there's not these huge chunks of graphics missing. So they're not perfect. They're okay, but I am not looking for perfection. I am looking to get them good enough just to be played, where you can read the numbers, you know, and there's not, like I say, the color's there. I try to make it to where an area is not going to attract your eye. So you say, oh, wow, this machine's really worn. So they walk into the place and say, hey, the machine looks good. And then they drop a quarter in it and I make a little money and they enjoy themselves. So having said that, you know, you may see imperfections and say, well, that's not the way I would do it or whatever. And, you know, we all have our ways of doing this. So I'll start, now I'll switch gears and we'll talk about what we're going to do. You'll notice there are chunks of the key lines and the circles missing on several of these. Same here, same here. So what I'm going to do is we're going to fix this. Now what I've already done is there was parts of this orange that was missing too, and there's actually two different shades of orange. But I'm not going to get that. I'm not going to get that detailed because once again, I'm just trying to draw your eye away from big chunks of missing color or whatever. So I took simple acrylic paint, and I just painted with a brush, kind of painted in some of these areas where it was bare wood. Okay, and I have put a single coat of Varathane here and let it dry, and that's just kind of smooth things out. So what I'm going to do is scan this area first, and I have a through scanner, okay, and this is made by a company called Doxy. So what I'll do, and I've actually already done this, so I'm not going to do it, but I'll put this down like this over the area that I want to scan. I'll scan it. Now, I have two choices here. The area that I'm going to do, in this case, these smaller circles, I can scan this in sections and then stitch it together as one section and then create the graphics all in one swoop and then lay them down at one time. Now, the advantage of that is it'll be a nice single line going across, and I do it all at once. The disadvantages are a couple. First, whenever you go down with actually what we're going to be using is vinyl, right? So I've got a simple vinyl cutter. When you go down with that, it's stuck pretty good. So, and not only that, but we're going to seal it. We're going to seal it in afterwards with clear coat. That's another thing. If you're going to do this, you have to be willing to come back and clear it with something. I don't think this vinyl would stand up to the abuse of a ball rolling directly over it. Okay, so you would have to do that. The good news on the vinyl is because it's a solid piece of vinyl and it's not something that's painted. So you can actually, I've sanded this. So once you put it down, so you can make it really thin, which the stuff is pretty thin already. You can barely feel, matter of fact, I can feel just as much roughness almost where I use just paint as I can where I put this vinyl down, especially after I sand it. It gets really nice and thin. As long as you don't sand all the way through the adhesive, you can sand this stuff really thin, like I would say as thin as paint. You can, and once you seal it in, I think it should be fine. I don't think there'll be an issue. What we're going to be working on after we create these graphics, and as I said before, I could do all these at once and lay them down all at once. The drawback of that is that you're going to get a lot of waste in between these. I can make them individually and just stick them down individually. If these numbers were gone, I could also do this in vinyl, which would be very nice. You just have to redraw it, I can redraw it in Illustrator. I could also do it in the actual software that came with the vinyl cutter. In this case, it's called the Silhouette. And I can't remember the exact name. We'll look at it when we get inside. But what I'm going to do is all three of these circles, which would be very hard to do with a paint pen, especially this thin. You know, impossible with a paintbrush. And, you know, in the past I've done the screen printing. I would have a hard time even doing that with screen print. That's some pretty thin lines there. Vinyl cutter should be able to handle this without any issue, right? So anyway, I've already got this scan. I'm gonna go in. We're gonna set up the software. We'll draw it. We'll make these. We'll lay them down. Now, as you can see here, I've already laid these down, and as a matter of fact, I've already sanded over them a little bit. And wherever you see shiny is where it really didn't, the sandpaper did not hit, okay? And the same way, these small lines here around this, I know they're kind of hard to see. I've already sanded those as well. So sanding it is no problem. As a matter of fact, I hit it with a random orbital. And I want to say this sandpaper, let's see if I can take a look and see what sandpaper we've got on here. It's 240 grit. So another thing too about sanding it, I bought the gloss vinyl, but I don't want it to necessarily be shiny when I coat over it. I want it to kind of be rough, so that'll give it a little bit of tooth for the clear coat to grab hold of. So that's another reason I rough it up, not only to make it thinner, but I you know, this is just so it's pretty smooth already. It surprises me how smooth this vinyl goes down. Same way with this outer orange. I mean, that's a pretty fine line on this outer part, and with the vinyl, this was just too easy. I will never do screen printing again. If this works after I clear coat it, and it looks okay, it should work for my purposes, and this is what I'll do from now on. And the vinyl comes in a lot of different colors, and it's not expensive, and it's much better than making screens and doing all that other crazy stuff. So we'll go inside. We'll set this up in the software, and draw out these new circles. I'll make enough to put down, and then I'll show you how you take those, put them on the transfer tape, and then transfer them here, and then we'll sand them down, and we'll see what it looks like. The other things about the vinyl is it comes in a multitude of colors. You may not be able to color match exactly if there's a particular color that you're looking for that you have to replace the key lines for. But you'll probably be able to get pretty close, even with, and these aren't even all the colors that are available. You can order lots more on Amazon and such. That's the actual vinyl cutter, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but I got it with the kit, and it came with a lot of different colors of vinyl. It's not hard to learn how to use. This is the transfer tape. This is what you'll use to pick up the vinyl once you've got it cut and weeded, and I'll show how you weed it and stuff. I'm not going to go real deep into how to use the vinyl cutter because there's already a lot of videos out there online of how to do that. I bought a big roll of the black since it's the most common. It's the most common color that I'll end up using. So once again, I've got the glossy, but you could get it like, here's some of these are the matte or flat colors, not shiny. You can also get those, but since I'm going to be sanding it down, it doesn't really matter. And the different vinyls have different numbers. This is, let's see, this is 651. This is the and it's made by the Oracle. This is the Oracle 651. So we'll do a little bit of drawing in the software. I'll get the lines drawn and kind of show you where we go from there. Okay, we've got our scan brought up on the computer here. And the first thing I want to do is to make it a little easier to draw. I'm going to, and this is the software that came with the vinyl cutter, Silhouette Studio. It's the free software, or well, free. It comes with the. It's not the. I didn't buy the extra software, so the simple software will get it done. But in the case of this, what I want to do is make this a little bit lighter, so it'll be easier to see where I draw my lines. Let's see. So I can go here and change my transparency, and this over here, under this tab. I can bring our transparency down. So that way we can draw, but we don't have to. And then I'll simply use a circle tool. I'm gonna have to kind of set the phone down here for a second. I'll try to bring this down. I'm gonna zoom in. And I'll bring it down so we can see. All right, hopefully that's in focus. So I'm gonna hold my Shift key down and my Alt key down. So I'm gonna draw from the center, and I'll make our first circle. Now I can do it here, and then I can move it around, and I can also adjust thickness. So I've drawn a line there. I'm gonna go up here, and then I'm going to add thickness here to the line. So we're gonna keep going until, you know, make sure it's selected first. So I've got to go up here and select tool. I'm gonna select my line. All right, I know that's selected. So now I'm going to add to the thickness. Now I could go in and type directly to get an exact thickness, but I'm going to just keep thickening it up till it looks about right eyeball wise. Now I've got a pretty good circle over here, so I'm going to use this circle to kind of give me a good guide to go with. And that needs to be a little bit larger. Grabbed the wrong thing. Looking pretty close. If I go a little bit, yeah, that looks pretty close. So that would be our inner line, which is a little bit thicker. And keep in mind that this scan from that scanner, this is in actual true size. So as long as it fits here, when we put this out on the playfield, it should be this exact size, okay? So what I'm gonna do now is actually, to keep these circles in a nice concentric and even spacing all the way around, I'm going to create another circle on top of this one, directly on top of it. So I'm gonna go up here, and I'm going to copy this and then paste in front. So that will paste it in the exact same space. So copy and paste in front. So now there's actually two circles there. One is overlapping the other, you can't see it. So if I want to keep this in the same spot while I make it larger to cover one of these other smaller circles, what I'll do is hold my Alt key down. So once again, I'm going to put my phone down. So I'm going to hold the Alt key down and simply make this larger. Now you'll notice that there are two circles, but they're going to be nice and exactly centered together, right? And that's the reason I hold the Alt key down. And what the Alt key does is tells it to expand from the center instead of from the top left corner, okay? And now I'm also going to go and make it not as thick. So it's selected, so I should be able to bring that thickness down until we can get it to the right size. That's going to be pretty close, I think. Maybe it's a little bit thicker. Okay, and we're going to do that one more time for this outer circle, because there's actually three circles here, okay? Even though some, like over in this area, you may not see it. There are three circles, so I'm going to do the same thing. Edit, copy, and edit, paste in front. I'm going to hold my Alt key down one more time. I'm going to make that the third. So now we should end up with three nice circles here. So I've got to make a bunch of these circles. So what I want to do is select all three of these right? And then group them so I can, when I make a copy, it'll make a copy of the entire thing. So I'm gonna hold my shift key down. I'm gonna tap the first one, second one, and the third one. And I think I might be able to right click and group these. Let's see. Yes, right there. I can group. So now, if I want to copy this several times, then what I can do now is just with my select key, I can hold my Alt key down. If you'll notice, it adds a little plus sign there. Let me kind of get you closer. See, when I hit the Alt key, it says makes a little plus sign. So if I move that now, it'll actually move and make a copy. So I'm gonna set this back down. I'm gonna slide it to the left. So earlier I said I can do one of several things. Either I could actually make one, I could stitch several of these pictures together in Photoshop and make one sweeping vinyl that where it cut these in this exact space, and then I could pull that up and lay it down directly on the playfield. Now you're going to get a lot of waste if you do that on the vinyl, which is not that expensive. And also, it's a little more fidgety if you're trying to, you're trying to look at 6 different things, 8 different things when you're trying to line all these up. So for me, it's easier just to make a line of these across the sheet that it's going to cut. Make a line of them and just cut them side by side, and then I'll make them as each individual circles, and then I'll just drop them down one by one, just lining up each one by eye. So I'm going to finish making all these circles. We'll go ahead and we'll cut the vinyl. I'll weed it, and then we'll go out and then put it down on the playfield and sand it. So just I'll be right back, and we'll be done with the cutting. I might show just a little bit of it working, but most people have seen a vinyl cutter. And then there's some of the tools that we use to weed the parts that we don't want out. So we'll do that next. Okay, we've got all of our various shapes set up, and I've got it set to cut along the edge. Let's see. So I can select this. You'll notice that I've got it selected to cut edge, and you'll see that dark red line there on the outside of each. So that tells the software that I want it to actually cut not in the center of that circle, but at each edge of that circle. So we'll get an actual piece of vinyl. So I've got the vinyl loaded up, and we are going to, well, I'm gonna have to connect. I'll connect, and then I'll start the cutting process. Okay, we're connected. I've got all of our various circles and triangles that I need to finish up this playfield. And I've got it zoomed out. It's the reason why it looks like one big thick one big thick circle now. So, but anyway, we're gonna send it. We'll send it to the cutter. Now it is working. It's like watching paint dry. And now it should start cutting our circles. So once this is done, I'll pull this out and we'll weed it, and we will prep it by putting it on the transfer tape. Okay, we've got our cut piece of vinyl here, which may be hard to see, but all the tiny cuts are in there. And the first thing I'm going to do is peel back the main part of the vinyl and get rid of it because we don't need it. So I'm going to do this, just slowly pull it back and reveal all of our circles and triangles. So we've got nice clean cuts all the way across. And usually what I like to do next is when I start weeding, I'll weed out the center first. So I'll just pick one and pick that back. And then you have to get in here, and so that way I know that this is a line and I can get in and pick between those two. Okay, and then I'm going to do that one more time. So between this line and the next line, so we've got a thin line and a thicker line. So now we've got, take a look at that. Look at that. So you see how nice and fine those lines are. So we'll be able to lay each one of these down. So I'll go ahead and weed the rest of them, and then I'll show you how we put them on the transfer tape next. And I've weeded all the smaller lines out of the circles. So now we have everything. I made a few extras in case you mess up. I have one larger, and then I had a couple of solid circles that I have to do, and a few triangles that I had not finished up. So what we'll do now is put all this now onto the transfer. And this is the transfer tape. So we'll pull this back. Take this and lay it down in the center, and then like that. Okay, we're done with that. So now what I'll do is take a credit card and make sure all of these are actually really good and stuck to the tape. And then we're gonna cut each one out so then I can take it, and each one will be a little sticker, and then we'll use the transfer tape to put it onto the machine. We'll do that next. All right, so I've gone over each one with a credit card like so. And then I cut them all out, so we've got all of our individuals, so I can go and put them on each individually. And you'll know you have it right when you can peel back the transfer tape and it stays on the tape, okay? Because that's what we're gonna use to actually keep these exactly like they are and put them on the playfield, and they'll look exactly like that when they go down. So we'll go out to the playfield now and start putting these on the actual playfield, and then I'll show you how we do that, and then how I do a quick sand over the top of them. And then after that, I'll go on to the clear coating, and then we'll take a look at the final product when it's all done. So let's go out to the playfield. Okay, we are back out of the playfield, and we are going to lay down some circles. So what I'm going to do is pull back my transfer tape, and we've got it actually on the tape. So, and then what I'll do is go, and I'm gonna actually kind of lay it on here, but not too sticky. And of course, if we were to screw up, right, I could come back and actually pull this back off. Let me just gently remove that, the transfer tape, and now that's stuck. And I mean, it's stuck pretty good. The one thing I will say about this vinyl is the adhesive on the back of it is pretty strong. So we have one here that's missing a pretty good chunk across the top. I'm gonna redo all of these. another one done. So let me see if I can kind of get you in there. And you know, I didn't get the orange paint underneath those perfect. I just kind of hit it with one coat. Once again, we're just trying to keep the people from, you know, the eye from it grabbing your attention. So you can see here between the difference between this and this. So that's really going to clean the rest of these up. So I'll go ahead and put the rest of them down. And also I have a triangle or two to do. And like I'll tell you what, we'll do this circle here down toward the bottom as well. So you see how much of that circle there is missing. So, and I made some that were the size of the circle. Let's see if I can drop. And also you can expand the size of this a little bit as well if you need to. I'm getting a glare on that. I'm going to come from the other side, I think. You can expand the size of the circle if you need to cover up some imperfections, which is kind of nice as well. We'll drop that right in. Just kind of lining it up with the original circle. There we go. So let me get the rest of these down, then we'll go over them with the sander and knock the shine off of them, and also thin them out some to make them thinner. That way they're not, and even I think they would actually be fine without sanding them. But what I don't want to do is have to build up the clear so much to get over the top of this additional thickness. So I don't want the clear to have to compete with the thickness of this. So that's why I'm going to sand them. Also, to, as I said earlier, so that they lose this glossiness and they'll gain a little more tooth to kind of grab the clear coat. So we'll finish doing this, sand it down, and then we'll move on. And there's post sanding with the orbital, and knocked the thinned it out some and roughed it up some. So I'll clean this up and then hit it with some tack cloth, and I'll start clear coating. Okay, so here is the final. I haven't got it all back together yet, but I've started putting it back together. So you can see kind of how the vinyl turned out. I am pleased with it. Once again, not perfect, but I think much easier than doing screen printing, and I think it's gonna work out just fine. And so that's how we did it. If someone decides to try to use a vinyl cutter to redo their lines, share it on this YouTube and let me know. And I hope everybody has a great day. Thanks for watching.